Let's go to Lara Greaves, political scientist, Victoria University, Matthew Hooton, Herald columnist and political commentator, because we've got lots to talk about in politics this morning, including a couple of polls. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Did you see that video?
Yeah, I feel nauseous now. Thank you for that.
Bit gross, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite a mountain that guy was climbing. Who politically has the biggest mountain to climb? Matthew? After seeing that poll last night.
I'd say currently it is probably Labor, but it's not the massive lead, but they do want a 3 in front of their poll rating pretty soon.
And 29 was not a good result for them last night. Let's take a look at those numbers from last night's One News poll. So Labor, everyone all the big parties dropped. This is the One News Varium poll. National, 34%. They were down 2, Labor 29 down 3, Greens 12% up 2, ACT 8% down 1, New Zealand First 8% up 1. That is your top 5. Te Pāti Māori was 4% up 1. Lara, it's all within the margin of error, isn't it, that stuff? I mean, did anything really happen last night?
Well, what I was kind of expecting is like a poorer performance from National, given all of the really negative commentary around the budget, because it's that thing of like, this government's had a lot of negative commentary, a lot of negative coverage. So you kind of expect at some point that to translate into polls. Although I wonder if the baseline is already quite low. They're not particularly performing well for a first-term government.
Matthew, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the government's going to be fairly pleased with this.
Yeah.
After the pay equity debacle, in terms of how it was announced, I mean, when you first heard it, it sounded like the worst thing that ever happened, but there was a rationale behind it, and it wasn't quite as brutal as it initially sounded when it was announced.
And this poll tells us that actually most people either don't care, don't know, or agree with it.
Yeah, I mean, on the day it was announced, I think if you did the poll, you would have got 0% thinking it was a good idea, but I think the government has recovered their position a little bit and made a reasonable case for why they felt they had to make that move. And, governments are elected to do things. The government took a risk with its budget, obviously, and in some ways voters show some tolerance of that. And the other party, I think, to note is the Greens. They came up with what is a very radical tax plan, $88 billion, but coherent.
Yeah, it's a plan.
And they've been rewarded for that.
Yeah.
And I'm pleased to see voters saying to the political class, yes, we do want some substance, not just slogans. So that's good.
And that brings us
plan, yeah.
right, which brings us to Labor, who's as you say, now in the 20s. It's a deliberate strategy of them not to say anything at the moment. They don't have any policy. They're not announcing anything. They're barely even taking positions on stuff like pay equity. Will we, bring it back in its entirety? Don't know.
Yeah.
Is that going to hurt them later on, or is it just?
Well, look, 2 possibilities here. One is that they're completely asleep at the wheel. That's a possibility that, we never want to rule out entirely. The other possibility is that they've internalized the message that timing is everything in politics. And so if timing is everything, we're like 15, 16, 17, 18 months, whatever it is out from an election, you don't really want to give away your sales pitch right now. And they're just playing it quiet for now because there's no reason to, actually deliver your policy or tell people what it's going to be.
Matthew, next year the economic wins should be at Luxon's back. Well, more so than they are now.
Well, they should be.
They should be.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, there should be what the economists call a reversion to the mean, and things go back to normal.
Yes.
But, yeah.
So
Trump exists.
Yeah. Well, true, but better than things are now.
Yes.
So, what does the question then become for you? Does it become, do you have ACT and New Zealand First? Do you need ACT and New Zealand First? How does this election look for you?
Well, whether by luck or design, this Prime Minister has succeeded in not destroying his coalition partners. And previous MMP Prime Ministers have either been so popular that their coalition partners have been in trouble. Both of them are at 8%, so they both will be back. And with National, it's 50% of the vote. So that's another reason for the government to be pretty pleased with this. In the old days, I'm showing my age here, before we obsessed about polls all the time, you go back to 93, National was at 29% in May of election year and then won that election. And people didn't obsess about polls. Governments governed, and then when it came to election year, they started campaigning again, and they backed themselves that their policies would deliver. So, you know, you can come back from low poll ratings if you back yourself.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
and we just need to look at Canada. I mean, 18 months out from their election, it's exact flip. We just don't
Totally.
know. We can't predict.
No, we can't. Interesting you talk about coalitions. The Dutch coalition just fallen apart and collapsed overnight.
And the Mongolian one.
East and the
Grand
Mongolian one.
Coalition
That's right, you
has
follow Mongolian
the Grand
politics.
Coalition has
Yeah,
fallen.
that's
Yep.
right.
Yeah, the Dutch lasted, I think, 11 months they had in power together. They'll go to a snap election. Guys, thank you very much for coming on the show. Great to have your analysis as always. Lara Greaves, political scientist at Victoria University, and Matthew Hooton, Herald columnist and political commentator. Time now 12 minutes after 7.